be fine. Okay,
Okay,
continue.
it's recording.
Okay, so we can start
Yes.
right now. First of all, dear professor, thank you for accepting this invitation for our psychology and HR club in Croatia, especially since these are quite interesting or turbulent times in America. And first of all, I would like to ask you, how are you considering everything that's going on?
I'm doing fine. A little anxious about the election here in the U.S. So hopefully we'll have an answer soon, and hopefully it'll be a good answer.
Yes. Okay. I won't ask you this directly, but we all have, some opinions about what you're thinking. So,
Yes, I'm sure.
yes. Well, we are extremely grateful. Our members had the opportunities to see your biography. Since we don't have lots of time, I will start with the question lists. So, first one, can you tell us how did you decide to work on this very specific area? Meditation and brain, and it's kind of rare.
Yes, it is kind of rare. I was lucky at the early stage of my career to uh, be around some people, to meet some people who were meditation practitioners, and they were very warm-hearted people. They were kind. They had a lot of characteristics that were very attractive to me. Um, and and then I went to India after my second year of graduate school to learn more about these traditions. And I came back with a conviction that these were very important for Western psychology to take account of. And I was reminded of um, an extraordinary passage in William James's book, The Principles of Psychology. He wrote, that book was published in 1890. And he had a chapter on attention in that book. And he said, the faculty of voluntarily bringing back a wandering attention over and over again is the very root of judgment, character, and will. And then he went on to say that an education which should improve this faculty would be the education par excellence. And I was convinced that if nothing else, meditation was a strategy to educate attention. And I thought that we can begin to empirically investigate this. And then in the very early stage of my career, it was made very clear to me by my professors that this was not a particularly viable topic to investigate. And so I became a closet meditator for many years. And then things changed when I first met the Dalai Lama in 1992. So that's a little bit of the backstory behind it.
Did you have trouble because of this, topics? They're not purely rational and empirical in essence, of theme of what you were investigating.
At the early stage of my career, I did have difficulty. I encountered all kinds of challenges. People were quite skeptical. I and so it was very difficult, very lonely. And
Yes.
really only in the last 10 years has the environment changed, and we see now global interest in these topics.
Now we will go future back and back to the future. Mental time travel. Now looking back, what would be the most significant finding of your career? Is there anything you will single out?
Well, I think it's a cumulative body of findings. My most highly cited paper is one that was published in 2003, and it was the first randomized controlled trial of mindfulness-based stress reduction, where we looked at changes in the brain and changes in response to the influenza vaccine. And we showed that meditators actually had a more robust response to the vaccine. They showed elevated antibody titers to the vaccine, meaning the vaccine was working more effectively. And those changes in the vaccine were predicted by changes in the brain. That was a seminal paper. It was not a particularly great study methodologically. It had some limitations, but it happened to be, the first study of its kind. And that kind of opened things up. And then another paper which came out the following year in 2004 was a paper investigating gamma oscillations in long-term meditators, where we showed the increase in gamma oscillations and increased synchrony of gamma oscillations in these very long-term meditators. And that paper was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. So it was a very prestigious journal, and that helped to usher in, I think, this new era of research on meditation.
So you opened the door actually for this
Yes,
whole new field.
yes.
And it was probably easier for people who wanted to investigate those topics because they could always say, well, there's a professor Davidson who is respectable. So it was probably easier for everybody who wanted to investigate this field and themes. And then my second question is related directly to contemplation. Contemplation benefits for the brain. And is contemplation ever harmful? When and to what populations?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's completely without any risk, although we just recently published a paper that just came out about a month ago with a very large sample size, more than 5,000, showing that there really is no significant harm that arises from at least early stages of meditation training. And so I would say, compared to other treatments, particularly pharmacological treatments, it's much safer.
Okay.
In individuals with severe psychiatric disorders, that's where I think it could be potentially problematic. And so I would say that it would be most appropriate if anyone with severe depression or bipolar disorder or schizophrenia wishes to learn to meditate, they should do it with a mental health professional who also is well versed in meditation.
And what are the benefits of meditation
Well,
if
I
it's
would
done
say,
properly?
yeah, if it's done properly, I would say there are many benefits. I think it enables you to be more fully present and to be more attentive. It enables you to be more connected to others, to open your heart, to have warmth toward others. It enables you to have more insight into your own mind and understand how your mind actually works, particularly in relation to the self. And finally, it, I think, helps to um, uh, uh, make more salient your sense of purpose in life.
Mm-hmm. I understand. So it's we can say everybody has some intuition about what he or she should accomplish in this life. So finding your purpose and meaning and meaningful goals and so on.
Yes,
Very
exactly.
important,
Yes,
those ultimate concerns and this life present concerns. And
absolutely.
so the second question is about different contemplative practices. For instance, I read somewhere that like prayer in Europe, Eastern Europe, here's more Croatia, most are Catholics and Christians. That prayer is very beneficial, except when people have, well, scary pictures of God. So then it doesn't help, obviously. So, have you ever researched these differences in contemplative practices? I know there is Buddhist meditations, love kindness meditation, prayer traditions like Christian, Carmelite, Jesuit, and so on. Are there any
Yes.
differences in the impact on the brain?
We don't really know at this point. There has been very little serious scientific investigation of prayer, of Christian prayer, for example. There are beginning to be some scientific studies of this, but it's still too early. What we do know from our research with different kinds of meditation, for example, comparing mindfulness to loving kindness, is that there are differences in the
Mhm.
brain. There may be some elements of similarity, but there are also some important differences. And so I would say that different kinds of practice are likely going to produce different effects in the brain, but there may be some underlying commonalities, particularly with respect to circuits in the brain that are important for attention. Because in one way or another, all forms of meditation do involve regulating attention.
So the point is on what we put attention on in different meditations. What
Yes.
is where is our focus on some object in reality or nothing at all, for instance? So my second question would be: so does meditation or prayer or contemplation should help us to be more effective in this world? Is it, or is it something to like where we can escape from the world and
I would say it's not about escape at all. It's really about enabling a person to be more effective in the world. If it were just to escape, just to have experiences while you're meditating or praying, what would be the point of that? When you stop meditating or stop praying, if everything went back to baseline, it would be like taking a drug. And when the drug wears
exactly?
off, the effects are gone. That would
Yes,
be a waste of time. And
yes.
so the research actually shows that the impact persists, and we think of it as an altered trait that is an enduring change that will affect all of the different aspects of one's life.
Uh, it's like a snowball effect and avalanche. It just
Yes.
goes very, 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 very nice. I think I understand. I think people will understand everything what you're saying because you're speaking pretty clearly and practical. My next question is about neuroticism, harm avoidance, or negative emotionality. Well, it's I think I, as a person, have positive opinion about medicine, meds. In some cases, because of some insufficiency in the brain and so on. But neuroticism is pretty hard, because it's the best predictor of practically every common mental disease. And I know you research amygdala activity, and I know Professor Cloninger was working on a serotonin and so on. It's so how can meditation help people who are neurotic and have this negative anticipation that is automatic or unaware? So
Yeah,
that
that's a
population is extremely vulnerable.
right. Yes, it's a very important question. And one of the things that we find is that neuroticism is associated with a difficulty in regulating the amygdala, particularly a difficulty in having the amygdala come back down to baseline once it's activated. We all need our amygdalas. We all need to be able to identify threats in our environment, for example. That's something that's important for our survival. But we also need to be able to recover quickly.
I think I
The
read in one of
capacity,
your articles about amygdala that there wasn't significant difference in one part of the study, but it was in this cool down of amygdala in a neurotic population.
exactly, exactly. So we've studied that, and neuroticism is particularly associated with the the speed with which you are able to come back down to baseline after your amygdala gets activated. And one of the things that we find is that meditation can improve that. So it doesn't make us emotional zombies. It doesn't decrease our emotion, but it allows us to recover more quickly. And that is the key to resilience.
I think I understand. So it's like we are not jumping out of ourselves completely. So we are still here and now and have ability and control over our bodies and minds because
Well, and it's
it's
particularly
difficult
being
for.
able to come back down to baseline more quickly and to not show anticipatory anxiety. And then once a stress occurs, you can respond. It's adaptive to respond to the stressor. But then you, after the stressor ends, you need to be able to come back down to baseline.
How is neuroticism even evolutionary explained? How does it benefit population?
Well, the core of it is responding to threats, and it's obviously adaptive to respond to threats. The problem is that we humans have a very well-developed prefrontal cortex. So our threats are not a lion that's about to eat us, but they're threats that we create in our own mind. They're threats about the future. We anticipate the future and we ruminate about the past. Those are our threats. And so
So,
we need to be able to disengage from those thoughts so that we can come back down to baseline.
so we have those threads that are possible, but we go to threads that are no probable to those that are possible, and everything is possible. So we say everything, and everything that can happen. I mean, we can lose our minds if we start going into that, train of
Right.
everything
So,
that is possible in this world.
yeah. And so, our capacity for imagination and for mental time travel obviously serves us well, and there are many advantages, but it also is what gets us into trouble and creates a lot of problems. And so one of the things that meditation teaches us to be able to do is to more effectively disengage from that. So I'm
My
going to have
last
to go in.
question.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go in just 1 minute.
Okay, my last question. Is meditation just purely human phenomenon, or is there something else beyond us, concepts of God and so on? Is your opinion or not personal
I,
opinion?
I'm basically a scientist, and so the concept of God doesn't have a lot of meaning for me. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a spiritual dimension to life. And in different traditions, we may assign different words to that. And that's okay. Um, but I think that what we're talking about are activities that are generated in our own mind.
Okay. Professor, thank you so much. I think I could talk with you for hours, but I'm so grateful for not just from me, from everybody that you accepted this invitation. And I wish you best of luck, good health, and everything that you want, even better.
Thank you so much, and I wish you the best, and I very much appreciate you inviting me, and I'm happy to do this. And please send me an email so you remind me of your email address, and I'll send you the link to the recording.
Okay. Thank you, Professor, very much. I will send it right away.
Very good. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. It was an honor.
Very good. Honored to be with you.
Thank you, sir.